My name is Victoria Pasquantonio. I'm director of the PBS NewsHour Classroom, and I'm joined today by Kenneth C Davis, author of The World in Books, 52 works of great short nonfiction.
Thank you, Vicky. It's always a pleasure to be with you, and it is a pleasure to talk about books and a time when they are under assault from a number of different directions, and I'm sure we'll get to that. Obviously, book bannings and book censorship and the suppression of writers and books has been around longer than there are books. You can go back to the time when Chinese emperors burned scrolls, and they weren't books, but they were the written word. Why do people burn and destroy and censor the written word? They don't like the ideas, and that's always been what the powerful try to do with ideas that they don't like, especially coming from writers and thinkers and people who want to expand human thought and creativity and imagination. The fact is that in the past few years, that I've seen two very disturbing trends. First was the trend of the internet absorbing our time, the internet and social media in particularly, especially during the pandemic when we were all doom scrolling through the dreadful news of what was happening with the pandemic and then the politics. I discovered during that time when we were in lockdown, the absolute balm of reading fiction. And so I set about to read fiction, but because my attention span was short, like everybody else's, I started to read shorter books, short fiction, short novels, and created this book, Great Short Books, which is 58 works of short fiction, everything from Animal Farm and Charlotte's Web to The Nickel Boys by Colson Whitehead. So
Hear you say that you yourself struggled a bit even to focus during COVID. What's your advice to our issues with attention and just how easy it is to succumb to the internet? And maybe you can talk about like the way you set up this book.
right. In the world in books, each it's a collection of 52 works of great short fiction. When I say a collection, it's not an anthology, it's a guide to these books. I have looked through hundreds, perhaps thousands of books from across time to focus on some of the great ideas in written history. And for each of these entries, what I do is give a brief excerpt, perhaps the opening lines of the book, then a brief summary about what the book is about. And then I put on my historian's hat and give a biography of each of the authors where possible. After the author biography, I explain very briefly why I think you should read this book, what's important about it, why is it meaningful, and finally, what to read. I was looking for their consequence. Were they significant in the time they were written? And did they retain significance over a great deal of time? Related to that is timeliness, meaning are they still significant?
What books would you recommend, or can you share a few suggestions out of the 52, say for an English teacher and a social studies teacher?
One that is especially, again, timely right now is a book called A Chill in the Air by a woman named Iris Origo, Origo. Now, she was the Anglo-American daughter of a very, very wealthy American diplomat and a British aristocrat, but her father insisted that she be raised away from England or America so she wouldn't be infected, curiously, by nationalism. A Chill in the Air is this young, very articulate, very observant woman's reflections on what is happening in Italy in 1938 and 1939 as Italy is on the brink of entering the war alongside Germany. So it's a very, very timely book in terms of a period in which fascism was, and militarism and nationalism were affecting Italy.
Clearly, media literacy is an important thing we care about here quite a lot. But fake news and this is how badly the signs of impending doom can be missed or dismissed.
Wow, Vicky, you've touched a very, very sore point here. When I wrote a revision of Don't Know Much About History, or the most recent revision and update, I actually wrote about the threat to democracy in this country. And when I wrote that, and that was quite a few years ago, probably in 2020, I was really concerned about the growing threat of authoritarianism around the world. And authoritarianism often brings with it censorship of books and suppression of ideas and idealism about, the things that we teach our little ones in school about this nation being born out of the idea of all men are created equal and we have the rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It seems that right now, some of those very, very fundamental ideals of what the American system has meant and how it's failed in many ways, but it is still an extraordinary experiment, democracy, and the idea that we, the people, are in charge. History is often very helpful in showing us where we're going, but it's not a crystal ball. So I have no idea where we will end here. I do believe, and that's one of the reasons I wrote The World in Books, that one of the ways to counteract these forces that are have been loosed is to keep reading and thinking and learning for ourselves and to think for ourselves, because the point of propaganda is to keep you from thinking for yourself. The point of suppressing certain books is to keep ideas that are dangerous to the people who are in power from being shared. And that's really what we're up against when we talk about book bans in this country or the suppression of teaching a whole American history. I do believe that to be an educated, engaged, thinking person is really more critical now than it ever has been before. And the way to do that is by reading great ideas throughout history. Part of the world in books is really about the idea that books can change us. Books can change societies, books can change us individually. And if we want to change, we have to be shown some of those ideas. So that's why I presented a wide range of thought and approaches to philosophy.
While these subjects are so serious, they really do look to you and your work for providing uplift and hope and actual from history. So you've included Du Bois, you've included Ida B. Wells, you've included, I mean, bell hooks, and you name it, several African American writers in your book now, in The World in Books. Is that still very, very much a part of your psyche and thinking?
Oh, absolutely, and perhaps more so now because of the atmosphere and the environment that we're in, and this notion of suppressing certain ideas that are, so-called divisive histories or histories that might make some students feel shame. That's such a dangerous idea to me. You cannot understand the history of this country without understanding the fundamental role that slavery played in building the nation before it was a nation, and certainly in building the republic once the Constitution was written. Slavery is written into the Constitution, even though the word is never mentioned. And to ignore that basic fact of American history is to teach a really watered down version of history that isn't history.
My final question is about if you could talk to teachers directly, maybe, to know that what they're doing is the right thing.
Gosh, it's a very, very important question, and I don't want to give a sort of facile answer because I know how challenging the times are for so many teachers. So I'll put the optimistic historian's hat on. We have been through such incredibly dark moments in this country. Certainly, if we think back on it is Black History Month still. If we think back on the struggles of Black Americans in this country, the centuries-long struggle, and then, of course, the struggles during the civil rights era, the marches, the police dogs, the fire hoses. We've had really dark, dark moments in this country, yet we've prevailed. And I've always tried to tell students, especially, but I think it applies to teachers as well, that most of the great changes in this country have not come from the top down. They come from the bottom up, whether it was abolition or suffrage or the civil rights movement, in many ways, the anti-war movement during Vietnam. These were not led by politicians. They were led by people. And so for teachers and for the students, I say, you may not be able to vote, but you have a voice. John Lewis couldn't vote when he went out to march, but he had a voice and he used it. So I think it's really a time when a lot of people feel a little fearful. They're, tucking in a little bit, becoming a little self-protective. But we need to find our allies, and that's true always for teachers, I think. Find your allies, find the people who see things the way you do, and remember why you started this. It wasn't to, get rich. You started this because you had a call, a vocation to help shape young people's thinking about the possibilities in this country. And I still think it's a country that offers enormous opportunities and possibilities if we are willing to work for it. We think they are worth fighting for. It's time for us to also strap on our fighting gear and continue the fight for what is right.
Thank you so much. Do you have anything that I didn't ask or that you want to say that I?
Oh no, this has been such a wonderful conversation. I appreciate it. My message is primarily with The World in Books and its predecessor, Great Short Books, is that reading is what will keep us hopeful, inspired, uh, uh, fire the imagination. So keep reading, put down the phone, and take some time.
Once again, I'm Victoria Pasquantonio, Director of PBS NewsHour Classroom. I've just been talking to you, Kenneth Davis. Thank you so much. The World in Books, 52 works of great short nonfiction. Thanks for joining.
And people can find me at don'tknowmuch.com, where I'm always happy to hear from readers and teachers.
I'm glad you just let us know that. Thank you so
Thank you.
much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Vicky. Take care. Be well.